Hands-On is sponsored in part by ELMER'S Products, Inc., manufacturers of a variety of adhesives, arts and crafts, and office products for use at home, school, or business for over 60 years. www.elmers.com. Dixon Ticonderoga. Our colors, their world. www.dixonusa.com.
Learn skills for a whole lifetime of crafting on this season of Hands-On. At school, home, or even in sports, each week we've got craft basics and great projects, each with 5 steps and 5 main ingredients. And every project teaches a new skill that you can use over and over again. Keep basic supplies like scissors, markers, toothpicks, and rulers on hand. And remember, be creative. Whether math is your most favorite or least favorite subject, today on Hands-On, we have some ideas that will make math class and math skills more fun. First, the game of dominoes is a fun way to learn numbers. Then put your math and counting skills to good use and learn knitting. Kathleen Sams is back with next steps in knitting. Then we create a calendar that fits right on your math notebook. Last up, Kathleen is back and a project using your newfound math and knitting skills. It's time to get back to math class.
This is a great project for those of you who love math and love games. It is dominoes to go. Everything goes onto a keychain afterwards so that you can take a dominoes game with you wherever you want to. The supplies that we're going to need today are dimensional paints, a glue stick, and we're using a really wide one to make our project super fast and easy. We need opaque markers, and you'll need blank index cards, and they can have a line on one side, but they're great if they're blank on one side as well. I've used colored index cards, and if you want, you can use all white. You're also going to need a hole punch, scissors, and lots of energy to get started. First thing we're going to do is take an index card, and we're going to fold it in half. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it so that the lines touch each other. And that way, my finished dominoes won't have any lines on them. So just crease that piece of index card with your finger, open it back up again, and apply your glue stick. You want to use a good amount so that you're sure that these stick together. You'll notice that this glue stick is purple, but once it's dry, you won't see it at all because it dries clear. So next we're going to fold the index card in half again, and that's going to give us our domino shape. So again, fold first, crease, open it up, and apply your glue stick. Make sure you especially get the edges because that's where they separate first if you don't glue it well. You might even want to put a book on top of these so that they dry nice and flat. So you're going to have to make 28 different pieces of these. And I did a whole bunch of them and did multiple colors all over the place. After you've got all 28 pieces finished, the next thing to do is to put a line down to the center of them like I did here. And I found the best way to measure my line is to actually fold this in half one more time and open it up and then just cut it in half a little bit off-centered, and that's my ruler now, so that I can really quickly go and mark all 28 with a line down the center. Your line doesn't have to go all the way out to the edges, it can stop a little bit before each side. So it'll be really fast to use that little ruler. Once you have all those done, now is the fun part because you have to line them all up and make sure that you get a full set of dominoes. 28 pieces will make you a set of dominoes up to the number 6. If you want more dominoes, like if you want to go all the way up to the 9s, you'll have to make more of these little blocks. So what I've done is I've laid out my dominoes in the rows. Your first row is the 0 row, and you need 7 pieces in here so that you have a 0, 0 domino, a 0, 1, a 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4, 0, 5, and 0, 6. And to get our dots on it, I've used these 3D pens, and I have just done a little drop on each of them. And you can see I've also lined up my pens so that they line up. So this is going to be my rows of 1s. These are all going to be 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and 6s. To make the dots is very simple. Just take the lid off of your 3D pen, and I'm going to do the whole row of 1s on this side, and I'm doing them all in teal. You just squeeze the pen and let a little ball of paint drop out, and then lift it straight back up again. And so you can see I can do all the 1s at once because I've got them all lined up in a row, and this makes doing your project much faster. All the 1s are this teal color, and as you can see I've lined up all the 2s are going to be purple, the 3s are going to be raspberry, and so on. So now I need a 1, 1. I don't need a 0, 1 because it's already in my 0 row. So every time I start a new row, there's going to be 1 less domino. So if you stack up your blank dominoes kind of pyramid style like I have, it helps you keep everything sorted. So I know this is going to be my 2s, and so I'm going to do my 1, 2, and then you can see that I have my 2, 2 here. And then while this was open, I would go ahead and I would do all my 2s down this row. You can see I've already pre-done them. So that would have all my 2s done. Next is 3. You can see I did the 3s kind of on an angle. If you look at a dice, then you can kind of see how they stack all the numbers on those, and that will help you figure out how to do it. So now if we go over here, this is my 3 row. This is 3, 3, and I would have done those dots now while I have it open. And it just keeps you really sorted out and on track. So next is 4s. I'm going to do these ones all cornered up. Oops, there we go. So again, you just squeeze, drop out a little bit, and pull it straight up. Now these pens will take a little while to dry. I like to leave them dry all night. And that way you're sure that you're not going to mess up your project by trying to play with them too soon. So we've got the 5s, 1 in the center, and on each side here. We're almost done. And I guess you guys can guess that this is going to be 5, 5, and 5, 6. And last but not least, you would do your 6s. And here's your 6, 6 over here. I might as well pull that off and do those. So like I said, this is a great project. The next step for your project is to punch a hole into the center of each domino. And this will allow you to place it onto a key ring when you're all done. I'm going to take this 2, 2 one because it's all dry and punch my hole straight through the center, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You can just line it up kind of as good as you can, and then you place everything onto your keychain, and you're ready with your dominoes on the go.
Kathleen Sams is back, and this time we have a basic lesson on knitting. Isn't that exciting?
Yes.
Okay, so what are we going to do?
Okay, we're just going to kind of touch on the basic stitches.
Okay.
There's 2 basic stitches of knitting.
That's
Knit.
it?
Yes, that's it. You learn to do the 2 stitches, you can put anything together.
Okay, so what do we need to start out with, though? Our needles.
Right.
Okay, how do we pick?
You have a variety of needles that are out there, and I've just brought a couple of them to show you some of the differences.
Okay.
We've got bamboo, there are the aluminum, there's the acrylic, and of course they're all different colors. So sometimes, you know, that actually helps you in sizing them. Same thing with the aluminum. Now the bamboo's usually all the same color, and then there's circulars, but those are for more advanced knitters.
How do you choose what needle or what size to use?
Okay, normally that is actually on the ball band or the label,
so right here.
as is the yarn number, and that actually helps you identify what size needles you're going to need for that size of yarn.
Okay.
And on the one you're pointing to, that's a number 4, which is what's called a worsted weight.
Okay, this refers to the yarn, not the needle.
Right,
okay.
That's the yarn.
Okay.
And then also on the ball band is usually listed what they call a gauge. And it'll
Okay, I can see right
recommend
here.
what needle or crochet hook you need to use for that particular yarn to get that gauge.
Okay.
But
all right. But the smaller the needle, the smaller the finished piece. If you use large needles, it's going to get a lot bigger.
Exactly. And you need to you know, work that with the size of the yarn. So of course the heavier yarns are going to require larger needles.
Okay, so then this is a worsted weight, this also is a worsted weight,
That's also a
but
worsted.
what's the difference?
Because these are variegateds or prints.
Okay.
So that's the only difference. It's going to actually kind of create its own pattern, so to speak, when you're doing your stitches.
Oh, and I think you have a surprise for us and
I
exactly
do.
how that looks.
Yes, I do.
Now, okay, bulky.
And that's actually a super bulky.
Okay.
And that's where you're going to have to use your really large needles. And again, with what's listed on the ball band is only a suggestion. Okay. You will determine that yourself based on how you're doing your stitches and sometimes the pattern. You may want a lighter, looser weight or a lacier look to
effect.
things. Yes.
And the last one is tweed.
And that also is a bulky yarn.
Okay.
And it also creates its own effect when you knit it up. So
Okay, now you promised me 2 stitches?
I promised you 2 stitches.
This one.
The
What is
first
this?
one we have laid out here on the board, this is what's called a garter stitch, and it's just the knit stitch. You knit every row, and it's very simple. What we're going to do is we already have a piece started here, and as you can see, to identify them, that's a row, that's a row. It takes 2 rows to actually make it look like one.
Okay.
So sometimes this is more difficult, but they're like little bumps.
So the
or little
loops
seeds.
are going,
The little,
seeds.
yes, little seed-like things.
Okay, and on the last time that you were here, we learned how to cast on and get started.
Right.
So now we're going to knit a few rows.
We're going to actually knit a few rows, and to do your knit stitch, you're going to insert your needle into your stitch right from the left to the right. Okay. Yarn around.
Okay.
Going to slide that through and slide that off.
And
that
that's a
is
stitch.
that's your knit stitch. And again, you want to hold your yarn very loose and get your comfort zone on holding your needles. There's different ways of doing that. Just make sure you're very loosely. Don't pull it, because if you pull tight, a lot of beginners do that.
Okay.
It destroys your fabric.
Okay, now I've noticed you're going in under. Do you
Yes.
go always under?
From the front to the
Always from the
the
front.
front like
Okay.
that. Yes.
All right, good.
Yes. This is how you do a knit stitch. And you just kind of get a rhythm going.
And you know what's nice, with you using a bulky yarn, it knits up so fast.
It knits up very fast. And I have found that a lot of the beginners actually like using these bulky yarns because of that exact reason. And also, if you can hear this little click, click, click sound, a lot of people actually find that calming. And it's the click, click, click of the needles. If you don't like that, then you go to the bamboo or the acrylic or the plastic. It just depends on, but that can become part of the calming issue, because this is great therapy.
And once you finish one row, you're just going to turn it
You're just
around and
going
go
to turn
back
it
the other
around
way.
and go back and start in all over again.
Okay,
All
now you
right?
tell me, that's the knit stitch.
That's the knit stitch.
Okay, what's the second one?
All right, the second one is a purl stitch, and we're combining that with the knit stitch. So this, to go back to this real quick, when you're doing continual rows of knitting, it's called garter stitch.
Okay.
When you do a row of knit and a row of purl, it becomes a stockingette stitch, which is what this is.
This one is.
And you can actually see here, these look like little V's. That's how you
Right.
identify your rows and your stitches.
It looks like
So
a
like-
herringbone pattern.
Doesn't it? And sometimes the different textures of the yarn are going
Will
to
turn
make
out.
it look differently. And we've used the bulky here to make it stand out a little more.
Okay, how do you do
So
this one?
What we've done on that, now I've already got this and I've done my knit row. So now I'm going to do my purl row. And what we're going to do this
So
time.
when you say you did your knit row, you went all the way across,
I went all the
and
way
now
across.
you're going to come back.
Now I'm going to come
Okay.
back and I'm going to knit. And this time we're going to insert our needle from the right to the left.
Oh, okay, that's
Okay,
the difference.
that's
all
the
right,
difference.
I understand now.
And then you wrap it around,
Okay.
same way, pull that through and slide it off.
It's the same stitch, but
It's-
you're going
you're-
in instead of
Yes,
up on
instead
your
of
first
instead
thing.
of with knitting, you're going this way. With purling, you're going this way. So
Okay.
it's just a matter of which side you're inserting your
Okay.
needle. And you just work, and again, you get a rhythm going, and you work all the way across, and you see how it creates.
And
the
what's
stitches.
what's the difference
All
with
right,
this?
what we have here is we've actually done both of them together. So this creates a rib effect.
Okay.
So it's where we have actually combined knit stitches and purl stitches together on the same row, which sometimes is a little trying for beginners. But it's, if you just think about.
Well, Kathleen, you're going to be back later in the show,
Right.
and we are actually going to use this stitch, knit, and purl, and we're going to make all of these
Got
great
some fun
projects.
projects. Yes.
So we'll be back in a little bit.
Staying organized and on time is important wherever you go, and especially in class. This binder with a calendar written right on top of it is going to help you do exactly that. The best thing about this is also that you can change it from month to month because we've written on it in chalk. The main supplies that you're going to need for the project is a binder, and you can have this in black is best, or you could use any dark color. We need metallic permanent markers, and we also need chalk. Your basic supplies are a ruler and a pencil. So let's get started. So we're going to start with our binder. And what you want to do is measure the binder to find out how big it is, and onto it we're going to make a calendar grid. So I've already pre-measured and marked my binder, and I know that it's 9.5 inches wide, and into that I had to divide it by 7. So each of my sections is approximately 1.25 inches, and that will give me the tall part of the chart. I'm going to go ahead and draw it on in pencil. And that's going to allow you 7 spots for the 7 days of the week. Now your math skills are going to be important here because you're going to want to divide this and make sure that you divide it evenly so that each of your squares is nice and even. This is going to be permanent, so you want to do it really good. If you find that you do make a mistake, the nice thing is you can just use that pencil, erase the line, and do it again. Okay, now from top to bottom, we need to do 5 segments. So again, you're going to measure how big it is, and mine is 10 inches tall, and so I'm going to do them 2 inches each. I've already marked it, and we're going to go ahead and draw in that grid. And I've actually got one that's completely drawn over here, so I'm going to switch over to it. The next step, once you're happy with all of your grid and you know everything's nice and even, is to do it in permanent marker. So you just want to open this up. The metallic colors look great because it highlights it and gives it a little bit of shine. So use your ruler and line it up directly with your pencil lines, and then use the metallic marker to draw exactly over top of those pencil lines. Now this marker has a nice tip on it, and so you can actually do a fine line, or you can lean it down a little bit and do a broader stroke. So, and you don't have to worry too much about bleed either, because it's a nice smooth pen and it's not going to bleed on you. So just go ahead, and we need to draw in all these grid lines. Try and keep things as even as you can. You can take your time because they're odorless. We don't have to smell what we're working on. Now line it up at the top here. Now you could use another color. I've used silver for this project because I just love that color. But there's a beautiful copper color that you could choose, or you could do blue. And if you've got a lighter colored binder, then you could choose a darker colored pen instead of the silver that I've done. So we almost are done this part, and you can see that that grid is really easy to see on the binder now. 2 more lines, one here, and then we're almost done. So this is a really simple and fast project too, that for this much time involvement, you'll stay organized forever. All right, the next thing we want to do is write in our days of the week up at the top of the binder. So I've just abbreviated them, so I'm going to go Sun for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Now you don't want to draw your month on it with the permanent marker because you want to be able to erase this little chalkboard every month and put a new month in. So the next thing you're going to do is take your chalks, and with those, that's what you use to draw your month in. So I'm going to do February, and then I can write in my calendar dates as well. And again, these are all very easy to erase once the month is done. These chalks are beautiful. They are so vibrant. And one thing you might worry about is rubbing off your calendar and kind of getting out of sorts that way. What you can do is take a page protector and tape it over top of the binder so that it's easy to lift and clean underneath it. And that way you won't lose any important information. And then you can take other color chalks and do some fun stuff in there. So let's see, I'm going to put in a little heart for Valentine's Day. Let's see, I know somebody's birthday is on the 10th. Tom's birthday. If you have a math test, you better write that in too. Math. Oh, it's a 2-day test. That's never good. There we go. So that way you're going to have all the information you could ever want, taking it with you everywhere you go. When you're ready for the next month, easy. You just wipe it away. Your permanent marker stays in place, and you're ready to go ahead and write in your next month.
We promised that Kathleen Sams would be back, and now that we've learned our knit and our basic 2 stitches, our knit and our purl stitch, now we're going to move on and we're going to make things.
Yes, we're going to put those together and we're going to create some things.
Okay, before we get started, one of the things you showed me on the break was the way that you can tell whether it's knitted or purl is the back.
The back, right.
Okay,
right.
so if it's a combination.
This is the wrong side.
Okay.
This would be the wrong side because this is the side where you're doing your purl stitches, and this is the side where, you know, when you're doing your knit row, this is exactly how it's going to come out. So this is called a stockinette stitch.
Stockinette stitch.
And this is how you can tell when you're doing 1 row knit, 1 row purl. This is identified as your right side, and then the other side, which looks like the seeds. And if you'll remember from what I showed you before, the others were more defined bumps,
right,
where it was all knitting.
Okay, now you took this and you made a large rectangle.
We've made a rectangle.
Okay, what are we going to do with it?
From the rectangle, you can have lots of fun and make, and I've got a couple of fun projects here.
Okay, how do we combine?
One of the things first I do want to show you is in knitting, a lot of times I have found people have a hard time identifying how to sew the seams up and getting the sides even. So one of the things I've done here is you can see how it's very definitely identified. What I've done is I slipped the first stitch.
So you just slipped the
Slip
stitch
it off.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And knit the last one, even on a purl row.
Oh, all right.
And that just kind of helps you keep your, on both.
Both sides.
And on this one, I've just slipped it, and you can see it's made like a chain that goes down the side.
End.
So it just makes it a little bit easier to identify your sides.
You know what, it's so much easier with the larger yarn to see what your stitch looks like too.
Yes, it is, and it's easier to, you know, to be able to match them up and identify your stitches, and that's so important. But what we're going to do on this rectangle is fold it in half.
Right sides together.
Right sides together, and I like to leave a little bit of a tail on the end when I bind off, and that way you can start sewing from the very top, because I like to sew from the top down.
Top down.
You can sew from the bottom up. I prefer to do it this way, so I know.
Stretches a
well,
little.
it does, and this way I know I'm keeping my top straight. Now you can actually use your knit pins, matching. See, and look how easy this is. You match those little stitches. Look at that. And that makes it so much easier. And I'm just going to stick one little pin in there. But when we start sewing them, then all we're going to do is actually come in here and loop through those. Look at that. And you pick these up.
And pick both of them up and going through the top.
And going through the top, and it's so
kind of a
easy.
whip stitch.
It's kind of a whip stitch, and it actually keeps it fairly invisible. And there's a lot of other ways of sewing that, but this actually gets you started, and then you're going to sew it down. Let me take this pin out and see if you can see. But you see it, you know, as you do the whole thing down, it will all be very evenly, and that's why I like to do it this way, so you can identify them.
When we sew this together, what are we going to do? I think we have something here.
We have several things already. That one's in the garter stitch, which was all knitting, and we've made a hat. So you've
just
made,
like we did in crochet.
Exactly, and you can make this to any size. So on this one, we've actually used a variegated or a print yarn, and that's created its own striping pattern.
Okay, that was the surprise we talked about before. It will automatically make the stripe. You didn't do anything to do this, just use the yarn.
No, it automatically does that. And depending on the size of needles and the number of stitches is the lengths of what your striping pattern is going to develop.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah, it creates itself. You make your own pattern.
So you don't have to change colors.
That one is the stockinette stitch. Again, the same thing. You put however many number of stitches you want for the width of it, and you make it however long you want. And the pattern I've written to go from a preemie all the way up to a man's size head.
And those patterns are on the website.
The patterns are on the website, so it'll tell you exactly how many stitches you need.
Okay.
This one.
This looks familiar. Okay.
Yes.
It could have been a hat.
It started out as a hat. And I thought, oh, how cute this would be as a handbag.
Oh, it's adorable.
And it's also a combination of everything.
Okay, now this at the top is what we ended up on the first segment.
That's
Can
rib.
you show us that again?
Yes, that's
rib?
where we ended, and it's actually mixing the two together.
We don't have too much time, but a couple stitches.
We'll just do a couple, and this is what I call a 2x2 rib.
Okay.
So it's 2 knit stitches, and I'm going to do these quick.
Okay.
Okay, those were 2 knit. Bring the yarn forward. 2 purl stitches.
And that's it.
And that's it. Then back 2 knit stitches, and that's across.
And that's
then
what
you can
created
see,
this.
Yes.
So it's a rib.
It's the same front and back. So we've put that together.
Same thing here. This is a rib again.
That's solid rib, so that whole piece was a rib, and that can be used as
One
an
ball.
iPod. Yeah, and it's not-
one. You didn't change colors.
Didn't
is what I
change
did,
color,
right.
and again, it makes its own striping pattern. And this one is a tweed, and this actually has some texture to it, and that was just the garter stitch because I just wanted the yarn to do its
work.
thing itself.
So all we had to do is create rectangles. Now,
That's
you
it.
did promise me, though, you're going to be back again next season. So take a look at these socks, because next time we're going to learn how to make socks. And in
Knit and
fact,
crochet.
knit and crochet. And that pattern is on the website now,
The pattern's
too.
on the website now. For those who want to give it a try right now, there's some shaping
Right.
involved in this, but I'll be back to
But
teach you
you'll
how to
be
do
back.
this.
Numbers, counting, and all types of calculations are part of everyday life and a skill we all need. Next on Hands-On, it's time for a different type of basic skill for life, making friends. We hope you'll join us.
Projects from today's show plus other ideas are available on the web at craftsforkids.com. This is program 1109. Hands-On is sponsored in part by ELMER'S Products, Inc., manufacturers of a variety of adhesives, arts and crafts, and office products for use at home, school, or business for over 60 years. www.elmers.com. Dixon Ticonderoga. Our colors, their world. www.dixonusa.com.